Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me. Can't really hold a candle to Bobby Darin, but you know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was trying to remember the next bit. Somewhere waiting for me.
My lover stands on golden sands, yes, and watches the ships that come sailing.
Beautiful. This is great.
This is a karaoke episode.
That's right.
We're going to try and remember song lyrics at you.
Yeah.
You can just tell, you know, the spirits trying to take over your body to tell you the lyrics.
Oh my God. Okay, for a performer, if I could just like shift and let like some legend play through me, that would be pretty cool. Although I guess the people watching would be like, what, you're just doing a shot-for-shot remake of that song? That's kind of lazy. It'd have to be less well-known singers, I think.
Yeah, not like the Bobby Darins or the, you know.
Yeah.
If you go up there with a Billie Holiday, I think people are going to get suspicious.
What if it's Mariah and she tries to do the high note and your neck just explodes?
Mariah's not dead. So... Unless you're saying
I have some really bad news for you, Lindsay.
Her Christmas powers allow her to possess people even when she's still in physical form. But only in the last 3 months of the year are her powers strong enough to possess people.
My next thing was going to be Christina Aguilera, but she is also equally alive.
She's also alive. So...
Who's a famous soprano that's dead?
Lolo Montez.
Lolo Montez.
Famous opera diva.
I'm going to look that up.
The song Whatever Lola Wants, Lola Gets is about her.
Ooh, that's fun.
Lola Montez.
All right, folks. Jeff's got some homework. Look up Lola. Lola, she was a showgirl. That's a different song.
That is a different song and a different Lola. Lola Montez was dead before the Copacabana existed, so...
Oh, man, that would be weird. Anachronistic time travel. Maybe that's our theme for the day. Because these spirits, where are they from? How old are they? How do they know all this stuff?
I mean, as Boggs will tell us, they can visit the past, they can see the present, they can know the future.
Yeah. Oh, God. That was haunting. While you were saying that, I just saw his face doing that. Whew.
Yeah. He did a really incredible job in this episode. An actor who I am very fond of, but who I am used to seeing in much goofier roles.
Lon Suder in Voyager.
Yes.
What's this guy's name again?
The guy who plays Boggs?
Luther Lee Boggs. I always mix him up with Doug Hutchinson. But that's not him.
No, it's Brad
Dourif. Yes, Brad Dourif. Man, this is a tour de force performance.
I mean, he is one of the classic, I know that guy, guys, as he works so much in such a span of TV and movies and whatnot. Anyways, we should start the episode officially. And
That's right. Yeah.
Today we are talking about the 2 episodes that we each picked, Beyond the Sea and Humbug. Some very classic, I think, episodes with very different tones.
Yes, very different. Got that mythology ep, and then we have a
Monster of the Week.
Monster of the Week.
And, well, not quite as goofy comedic as something like War of the Cephalopods. It is one of the most famous, I think, like, tongue-in-cheek episodes.
Yeah. What's the one where it's kind of like cops and they're chasing a werewolf?
Oh, yeah, I don't remember what the name of that one is. It is a later one, but yeah. Don't remember the name of that one. I also don't remember the name of the one that's vampires, but it's like Rashomon.
Rashomon vampires.
We keep seeing the story from their different perspectives, and Scully's recollection versus Mulder's recollection is very different.
Oh, that sounds familiar and also very good.
Yeah.
They have very different brains.
Like, when in her version, she comes upon Mulder having been drugged by the pizza that he ordered by the vampires, and in her recollection, he's singing Shaft. And he's like, I did not. And she's...
That's fun.
But let's start, because it happens earlier in... It's the earlier aired episode. It's in season 1 still. We'll talk about Beyond the Sea first, and then end
some
with
places
Humbug.
I've seen it called episode 12, others episode 13. I'm not sure. I think 13 includes the pilot.
Okay, so otherwise it's starting after the pilot.
Yeah, so be careful, folks, when you go to watch it, that you don't watch the wrong one.
It is the one that in the cold open is Scully's parents having dinner at her apartment. So if you start one and it's not that, it's the wrong episode.
Yeah, we got a Christmas angel. Dad is the guy from Stargate. Great actor.
It's giving her a hard time about the fact that she has her Christmas tree up still. So this is sometime, I'm guessing, maybe early January, but she does say that he always made them take it down like the day after Christmas, so she's making up for lost time. So this could just be in the week between Christmas and New Year's, and he's that hardcore about taking down the Christmas stuff.
Yeah, I've heard about families that are really like strict about it. My family, sometimes we wouldn't even get a tree until Christmas Eve. Like if money was tight, we'd get one of those night of deals. So we'd keep it up, till the needles started falling off.
My father would celebrate Christmas like the entire year round, so we were always just trying to keep it contained to a couple months of the year. But it goes up. It's just because me and my sisters are all very spooky and we love Halloween. So we have made him wait until after Halloween is over. But literally the day after Halloween, he starts putting up Christmas stuff.
So 2 months worth.
Starts trying to play Christmas music in August. And I'm a big Christmas fan. Halloween is obviously my favorite holiday, but I'm a huge Christmas fan. I basically think the whole last quarter of the year is awesome. But it is less fun if you keep it up for like a third of the year, Like, part of what's fun about it is its specialness. Like, there's lots of celebratory foods that I love, but I only make them on the days that they're relevant because they wouldn't feel as special if you made it all the time.
Yeah, that seasonality. That's important to some folks. Or most folks. I don't know.
It is to me. I said, my dad would live in Christmas at least 50% of the year, if not more. But we've made him rein it in. So the tree is up well into January and possibly beyond. He also has 3 Christmas trees, 2 of which are artificial and 1 of which will be the real tree, the main tree. So the artificial ones can stay up an indefinite period of time.
Yeah. I never used to do a artificial one until I dated somebody that it also wasn't that, like, it wasn't a huge deal to them. I usually defer to whoever I'm living with. And she had a plastic one, and so I've had one of those ever since.
No, I'm real hard line against the I mean, everybody's... Oops, sorry, I just hit my mic. I was gesticulating so wildly. Obviously, anybody's allowed to do what they want in their own home. But for me, if I'm going to do a ritual, I'm going to do a ritual. And the whole point of Christmas trees was to take the green inside, keep it alive through the darkest part of the winter. So if it's not a real tree, you're not doing the ritual.
That's right.
Also, they smell nice.
So, yeah, you said something funny about how she rebels by punishing herself with pine needles.
Yeah.
It tells me that we already know she's kind of a workaholic, but also she's trying to prove something.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is pretty good economic writing here because, we get that whole rebelling conversation, and then also, as they're getting ready to go, her mom kind of shoots her dad a look.
Her mom is not ready to go, but she defers to dad for some reason.
Yeah. No, he says, like, time to shove off, and then everybody's like, oh, yep, guess that's it. I mean, clearly he's been used to giving the orders in their house, because the mom is not ready to go, but she's like, oh, yeah, okay, well, goodbye, Dana. Thanks for having us. Dinner was great as always. And then she shoots him a look, and he says, how's work? Meaning that they've had an entire dinner evening of conversation and he hasn't said anything about her job. And we did get told in the pilot that, like, her parents were disappointed that she did not continue with medicine when she got her medical degree and instead went into the FBI.
Yeah, it seemed like her mom and him had decided they were gonna talk to her about her work, and he was like trying to skate on his responsibility.
I don't think it was that. I think it was more that the mom was like, okay, you're saying it's time for us to leave, and you haven't even, like, asked her how her job was. I mean, it could be your interpretation for sure, too, but it definitely felt like one of those parent things of, like, you're gonna leave without even saying anything about the biggest part of her life, because Scully doesn't have a lot of life outside of work.
Right?
I mean, in season 1, she's still trying to keep a better work-life balance. We see her at, like, friends' kids' birthday parties and, stuff like that. But
I think she goes on a date at one point.
She goes on a date. I think she goes on, like, so we see her in at least the first season trying to have a little bit of work-life balance. But work is what she does, and the fact that they've had a whole, like, dinner conversation without talking about it.
I also wondered, having watched it already, I kind of wondered if Mom knows he's ill. Is that possible?
It's definitely possible. I think she seems very surprised by it.
Yeah.
The fact that, like, if she knew... I mean, they might have known something and not known that, but, like, if she suspected that he was going to have a coronary, I do not think they would have been casually having dinner at their daughter's house, like...
Oh, you don't think so? He seems like such a proud man, he wouldn't even want to talk about it.
For sure, but I think that, like, you go... you don't go driving at night and stuff if you think you're going to have a coronary. Like, you just... you might be too proud to take proper medical care or to let your kids know that your health is failing, but then I don't think you act like they did. I do not think the implication was that they suspected. I think the idea is that this was sudden and unexpected.
It was a total shock.
Yeah.
So I scrolled the show a little bit, and there's this commercial for the hair, spray-on hair stuff.
Yeah.
No shade if you use a product like this, but... it just makes me think of how, like some folks will pay anything to look younger, to have hair, and, like, whereas he's just, like, chrome dome, seems to rock it just fine. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, so then we come back to after her parents have left and she's fallen asleep on the couch to this infomercial about spray on hair. And she wakes up and her dad is sitting in the chair across from her, speaking but not audibly. Not that we or she can hear.
Yeah.
And she's like, what's going on? I thought you guys left already. What's up? And he keeps speaking inaudibly.
Did you try to read his lips to find out what he was saying?
I did not. Did you?
No. I felt like it would spoil the magic.
I don't know if he could be the kind of actor who was actually saying the thing that he assumed the character was trying to say, but he could also have just been doing peas and carrots.
Yeah, in a recent Doctor Who episode, a character was doing that sort of thing where it's like, what are they doing? You're not meant to know kind of deal. So she goes to look at the phone, and he's gone.
Yeah,
right?
The phone rings, she turns to look, and when she looks back, he's not sitting in the chair anymore. She's very startled for a second, but she picks up the phone, and we hear just, like, crying from the other end.
Oh, God.
And it's her mom saying that your dad has had a massive coronary, and he's dead. You know, we were having dinner with you like 2 hours ago.
Oh, poor Dana.
Yeah. And definitely whether her mom knew anything about it or not, she was certainly not expecting her dad to be dead by the end of the...
I think the credits are next, right?
Yeah.
We haven't talked about the credits yet. I'm going to turn up the...
I mean, I think we talked about them a little bit in the initial episode because we were talking about how iconic they are.
Yeah.
The theme song, very iconic. The I Want to Believe poster.
There's like ovaries. What are these things? We got an FBI badge.
Well, one of the things I think is funny is they have a shot of what are those balls that you could get at like Spencer's Gifts that when you touch them, the little lightning stuff goes to your hand. What are those called? But they have one of those.
They have a GIF, apparently, of them coming into an office with their guns out. Oh, man. It's so 90s. It's like a 90s website.
Yeah. And then it ends with the truth is out there for fast-moving clouds.
Yeah. It kind of reminded me of a zine, too. Like if it was in black and white. Just like different fonts and things coming.
Yeah.
All
I can see
wonky
that.
out of the side.
It does look fairly... But, you know, they were very cool credits at the time. I do think the theme song is really iconic. She blusters into the office.
She returns to work anxious for a new case to keep her mind off her father's death.
And Mulder is all like, oh, I'm surprised you're here, trying to be all sympathetic. And he says, how are you, Dana? And she like scoffs at the fact that he's using her first name. And then asks what he's working on. And he shows her the file for Luther Boggs, who is...
You know what? I just realized we skipped over her saying some really inappropriate work shit. She said something about him watching adult videos or something.
Oh, yeah. She says the last time I saw you that engrossed, it was the adult video catalog or something like that.
Which suggests he's got adult material at work, unless they hang out outside of work.
They don't hang out outside of work, especially not now, but Mulder definitely has adult material around the office. Like,
what the fuck? It's
yeah,
90s.
He's also like, yeah.
Oh boy, it's 1993. What are you gonna do?
He's also not getting any, which we definitely get in later episodes from him too. So his only outlets are like porn and 1-800 numbers.
Hell yeah!
Which comes up in later episodes.
They're gonna look into a young couple's kidnapping near Jackson University. Similar abduction occurred at another university exactly 1 year earlier. Bodies of that couple were later found. Authorities believe they had been tortured.
Yeah, he had kept them for a week and tortured them the whole time, but didn't kill them until the end of the week, which means that they have 5 days to try and find these teenagers, who we did see, we forgot to, like, abducted from their car where they were making out. And so the file that Mulder is looking at is for Luther Boggs, who's a man who he helped put in prison and on death row with his profile of him.
And Boggs is now claiming that he can, like, divine secrets through spirits or something.
Yeah, that he's a psychic conduit now that he was in the chair to be executed in the gas chamber once before, and that experience gave him, like, opened him as a psychic conduit. So now he can tell where the kids are, and he wants to change that information for getting out of the death penalty. He knows that,
Yes.
you know, he's not going to get out of prison, but he doesn't want to be executed.
I like that this episode warns you pretty early, like, it's going to be about the death penalty and dying parents and dealing with grief. It's like it gets you ready for a heavy episode.
And Mulder's giving us the rundown of, like, Luther Boggs' past, and it talks about him killing, like, every pet in his housing development when he was 6, and the fact that he murdered his entire family at Thanksgiving and then, like, sits down to finish the football game after he murders his entire family.
And didn't he kill more people after that as well?
Oh, yeah, no, those aren't the only people he killed. Mulder's just picking out some examples of the fact that, because he says, like, some people kill as products of their environment, some people are acting out past abuse. Leonard Boggs kills because he likes it.
Yeah.
So, Mulder is the one coming into this one who is skeptical. He does not believe that Boggs has psychic powers. But, you know, they're going to go because Boggs specifically requested to talk to him. And I do love this bit because he read the profile that Mulder wrote of him and feels that Mulder's the only person who truly understands it. And Scully's like, okay, well.
So weird.
It's so weird, but I can see that. Like, I can see
a thing about serial
killers
and mass murderers. They, like, so often just want somebody to, like,
they crave attention and
crazy
validation and stuff.
Yeah.
And so if they think somebody sees them, like, really sees them. But yeah, so Scully's like, oh, I'll go with you. You know, we've only got 5 days or whatever. And he's like, what? Are you going to take a couple of days? Like, you should sit this one out. And she's like, no, I can leave. The funeral's at noon. So I'm fine by, like, 2:00. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever, dude. And she says I need to work because he's like, I really think you should take a couple days. And she's like, I need to work right now. He's really
sweet to her as well. Like, he's your father, you know? It's like,
yeah.
Everybody grieves differently. Sometimes you're fine the day after, and then you're a mess 6 months later. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to it.
But we see just after Mulder leaves the office that she goes over to the X-Files and looks up the case file for Visions of the Dead. And then
visionary encounters with the dead.
She immediately, like, scolds herself mentally and puts it back and closes it.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you doing? But then she goes to her dad's funeral, which is, like, burial at sea. Just a little cluster of her family under umbrellas. There's, like, 9 of them. And a little guy on a boat emptying his urn into the ocean with Beyond the Sea. And Dana's mad that he's not getting a full military funeral with honors and his mom's like, this is just what I wanted. Just like the family.
It's almost like he cared more about the sea than the uniform, than the pomp and circumstance of the military.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that this is an interesting choice because almost every other indication we get... I mean, we do get that, like, being a sailor in the Navy was his life. Like, the whole way he relates to everybody. His nicknames with her is based on Moby Dick, and, like, he definitely seems to relate everything in his life back to it. But also you get a very military air from him in the one scene we have with him, so I'm surprised that he didn't want military honors.
Yeah, I wonder what my dad wants. Could go either way, I think. We've been to both kind of funerals for military folks. One was at a Buddhist temple, which was interesting. Let's see what happens next. Oh, Scully breaks down. She's like, "Do you think he was ever proud of me?" And she says, "He was your father." Yeah. And Mom says, "He was your father." And I'm just like, I have a strange mom and brother. I'm just like, so what? Like, tell me more. Was he or wasn't he?
That's the thing, is that, like, it's one of those really frustrating, very parental answers, in that she's like, was he proud of me at all? And the mom's like, he was your father, meaning both, like, you should know, and of course he was, because he was your dad, and all dads are, and, like, but not just saying, like, yes, or anything else. Leaving you in the most, like, confounding gray ambiguity of, like, if he was, you could just say it. So if you're not just saying it, then that implies that he wasn't, you know?
Yeah. I mean, TV parents have to be a little withholding or there'd be no drama, it seems like. At least in the 90s. We see Boggs in prison. He's cuffed and he's got kiss and kill tattooed on his knuckles. And I was going to ask you, what 4-letter words would you want on your fists?
Nothing. I always think those are very dumb.
Doctor Who won't fit, so I'm out. Star Trek. Oh, yeah, Star Trek. There we go.
I also think it's kind of outdated shorthand for, like, tough
badass.
guys.
Yeah, badass prison guy.
Because, I mean, I do know that tattoos, like, more on the bone hurt more or whatever, and when it's on your hands, it's basically unhideable unless you start wearing gloves everywhere. But this is a trope that comes from an era where visible tattoos were way more othering than they currently are, so...
100%.
But that is our introduction to Boggs. We get his cuffed hands in the chair with his red jumpsuit, and then pulls out to show an interview room in a jail with Mulder and Scully on one side of the table.
And he's like already channeling as they come in.
Yeah.
It's just his deal.
And Mulder is clearly reading this as a show. He does not not getting into it at all.
We can return to the past. We could see the present. We can know the future. It's so great.
Yes, and this bit seems
for
more
the
like
listener. We're just watching
dissociative identity disorder than.
Oh.
But it's a really great performance. He does a really good job because it's compelling, but you could see it going either way. Of like this guy as like a psychopath putting on a good show to get a deal, or somebody who either really believes that they're psychic or is really experiencing something. And
yeah, it's hard to know the first time you see it, like what he's really doing it, right? Like once the end happens, we're pretty sure he's really channeling.
I mean,
except Fox gives him the thing, and he already knows the details, which suggests he's working with the guy outside.
Yeah, Fox being like, I want to believe, like, give me something, whatever, and he gives him something from an evidence bag, and he goes into this whole performance of the kids and seeing them being tortured, and the guy torturing them, and it's very dramatic, and then Mulder comes up and grabs it from his hand and is like, I tore this from my New York Knicks t-shirt. So... either this guy doesn't need stuff to channel, which he did say. I mean, he knew where the kids were before anybody had ever given him a piece of physical evidence. So, but it does indicate that he's faking it because he takes it and acts like he's reading it. But nothing he's saying could be something he's getting from that because it has nothing to do with the crime. So this is all Mulder needs to solidify his pre-held opinion that this guy is not psychic. This is a murderer trying to work a con.
Would it have been more convincing if one of the voices had been like, hang on, this is from something else. This isn't part of the kid's outfit.
That's part of how he gets Scully later, right? Is he knows when something's real and when it's not.
Yes.
So I think it would have helped his case if he had been like, I can tell you stuff about the kids, but this is from your New York Knicks t-shirt, you know.
Oh my God. I was going to ask, have you ever seen someone channel for real? For real, in quotes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been to psychics and stuff. Like, I went to a tassiographer in New Orleans, and, you know. Oh, it's somebody who reads your tea leaves.
That's fun.
Yeah. And, you know, I've seen, you know, psychics do cold readings at magic shows and stuff, but no, I've never seen anybody quote-unquote channeling any spirits.
I watched a little bit of Ramtha. Jay-Z Knight lives up here in Yelm, Washington, has a compound. I watched a little on YouTube of her channeling Ramtha, who's this like 5,000-year-old prince or something.
Sure.
Yeah, pretty silly.
Because that's always the way. Instead of like any of the thousands of peasants, it's always like Egyptian royalty or somebody.
Well, those are clearly the only people obsessed with their legacy, right? So that's why they keep coming around. That's my theory.
You think all the peasants?
They're like, it's better here. It stank there. We're fine. We don't want to chat.
So yeah, this confirms Mulder's assumption that he's not real, but he did say some things, gave some indications to where they were. He talks about a cellar,
waterfall that's not
a warehouse, a waterfall that's not a waterfall, a stone angel.
Mm-hmm. A stone angel.
So, as they're, you know, Mulder's written it off, he's going home, but as Scully's heading back to her hotel, she starts to see the things that he...
Before you get that far, I wanted to say his delivery of I gotta go was like so amazing. He's all sweaty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and as she leaves, he sings Beyond the Sea.
Yes, that is important, which is what was playing at her dad's funeral, if we didn't mention that earlier.
Yeah. Oh.
And she sees her dad when she looks back, and he sings Beyond the Sea, and she looks back and she sees her dad sitting in his chair in his prison uniform and freaks out.
Yeah. Now, this is a common trope in supernatural shows. The authority figure will see something and not immediately go to the doctor to be like, I'm having visual hallucinations. Like, maybe I shouldn't be carrying around a gun.
If one of your parents just died...
I don't know.
Like, that's not a thing where you know that stuff is, you know. I don't know that I would if one of my parents just died. I mean, maybe by the second time or something it happens, but like, you know that you're thinking about them even when you're trying not to think about them. You're in a weird headspace. This is why Mulder's whole suggestion of like, you maybe want to take a couple days off, because you should not do things like have guns and hunt killers. You shouldn't even be
driving, honestly.
When you have home, something that
food.
Yeah destabilizing happen to you, and like we said, people respond differently, but lots of people are pretty weird for like it's a big shift to get your head around. So she's driving home and she sees the stone angel, and the waterfall that's not water is like a neon sign.
I wanted to pull up this music really quick because it's so creepy. Can you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's so creepy. I forgot. I can't send you the same audio that I'm recording because of whatever program I'm using.
Yeah,
but it's
she finds a warehouse.
And spooky.
It's spooky. They're good at spooky.
She's got the wire.
Music.
There's the wire hanger there. Candles.
Yeah, she's seeing all the stuff he talked about, but not seeing any people at first.
So he moved the victims.
Yeah. So, but everything else he described was there, but there's no people. But she sees, you know, the wire hangers and the candles, and it's the cellar. So she calls, you know, for backup. And they go back to talk to Boggs because, like, he's not They were gone. It looks like a crime scene, but there wasn't anybody there.
Hold on. I'm looking at the transcript here. She looks across the floor and sees several wire coat hangers. And then it says it goes to Scully's motel room, where she sees another version of her father. And Mulder knocks at the door. Is that right? Our video is like on an ad, so I can't push it forward. They made positive ID on the charm bracelet.
That she found in the warehouse. So it was the one of the missing teenage girl does indicate that she was either there or they planted it, but they have her. They know where she is because it was her bracelet, not just a random creepy warehouse with somebody else's random jewelry.
So Mulder is pissed because she could have been killed, right? If this was a trap set up by Boggs, like, what does he say? How did you find it? It was where Boggs said it would be.
She confesses to Mulder that she didn't notice it because of suspicious activity, which is what she told the police when she called for backup, but that she noticed the signs that he said.
Yeah. I didn't go looking for it. I came across an area that had landmarks he spoke of. That doesn't matter. That's exactly what Boggs wanted. He could have been setting you up. You could be dead right now. Like, he is so worked up. And then he says the Bureau would expect something like that from spooky Mulder, but not Dana Scully.
Right. He's saying that she's not... Because he's like, this is where you... Because she says, I can't believe I'm saying this, but could there be an alternative explanation? Basically saying that he is really channeling, psychic spirits or whatever. And he's like, why this? Why is this the thing? We've seen so many cases. You're so unwilling to believe me. And then they talk about that it's probably because of her dad. Like, he's like, I love this job. And he's like, you love your father. Like, you should have taken some time. You're putting yourself in danger. He's trying to get you. And then he shows her a mocked up newspaper that he's
They're going to trick him with.
He's going to trick him saying that they found the kids. But first he just plops the newspaper down in front of her and she's like, what? They did? That's incredible. When? How did it happen? And he's like, well, that's what I want Boggs to think because this is a fake newspaper. The courier made it up just for us. There's 12 people who know about it. And today Boggs gets his phone privileges. So I want to see who he calls after he sees that his plan has fallen apart because the kids have been rescued without him.
Yeah. He has a good line a little bit earlier. As for Luther Boggs, he's the greatest of lies.
Yeah, that's when they're talking about the, why now? Why are you willing to believe in this and you haven't been? Yeah. I want you to believe, but I don't want you to believe in this dude.
So next we go to the prison. The fix is in.
He's got the fake paper. They give it to, put it in his cell. And they watch him as he goes to make his phone call. And then Mulder's cell phone rings. And his one phone call he's using to call Mulder. And be like, why are you trying to trick me?
They're all in the security room watching the monitor.
Newspapers. Yeah.
Yep.
And he's like, I don't believe you. And Boggs says, Agent Scully believes me.
Oh my God.
And then that's embarrassing for everybody.
And she says, Mulder, even if he's setting us up, we have to do it.
Yeah, they've got 3 days. So even if this was a thing he orchestrated from the inside, with a partner on the outside, then they still need to play along or get information out of him because they need to find the kids. Their timeline is running out. So they're once again in an interview room with him as he's channeling and talking about what the killer is thinking and feeling But he can't give a name of the guy. Mulder's asking for a name. He's asking for a description, and his description is pretty vague. He's like male, short, skinny, gray skull, which is his earring, which we can see because of flashbacks, but they don't know what that means. And then
it's like his spirits can only see, they can't hear. Otherwise, he'd just give him the guy's name.
I mean, the guy's not walking into the room saying his name, right? Like, if they could, I think they might be able to hear, but this guy's not telling his victims what his name is. He's not even talking to them. He's just, like, torturing them. So, and then Boggs is getting all, like, tortured. Also, the perspective seems to be switching back and forth from, like, the victims to the killer and whatever. But Mulder pushes him for more specific details of the location, and he talks about it being a, cold room, and that it's a
he's
boathouse.
Over by the window.
So yeah.
There's a small boathouse on Lake Jordan.
And then he tells Mulder not to go near the White Cross. That he sees him down, he sees his blood on the White Cross.
Your blood spills on the White Cross.
And then they go to check it out. Mulder looking disdainfully over his shoulder at Boggs, so then you see them
yeah,
all SWAT teamed up.
Hell yeah. They're mobbing the boathouse. And Mulder, of course, goes his way alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's a renegade. He sees a boat.
Scully finds the girl and is, like, checking her out and calling for help, and then he sees a boat, like, leaving.
Yeah.
And he runs after. He goes, like, federal agent, and then there's a gunshot, and the boat takes off, and he has been shot, and it's by a cross beam support situation that looks like a cross.
Yeah, it's, like, painted white.
And so Scully is, like, taking care of him and calling for an ambulance and the officer down, but the boat with the killer and the other victim has gotten away. And then she notices that his blood is in fact on the White Cross and gets all freaked out.
Oh my god. Yeah, so got another ad, so we'll just keep going through this transcript here. They talk about Lucas Henry. Somehow I guess first we should talk about Mulder is on
he's in the hospital.
Yeah, they're putting saline in him, giving him blood. And we've got the victim, the girl that she saved, or the woman that she saved, is like recognizes the bad guy, Lucas Henry, 28.
Right. ID'd a mugshot, and that this guy who she ID'd is a known contact of Boggs, that, like, and there was always suspicion when Boggs was serial killing that he had a partner, but nobody could ever prove it or who that partner was.
Yeah.
So it's immediately like, okay, this guy is definitely running a scam, because this is somebody that we know that he's an associate of. If, this guy clearly orchestrated this to get him out of his death row execution.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm checking my notes here. Dana sees Mulder. It's always odd when cops are hallucinating yet stay at work. Oh, I said something similar
that's your
earlier.
thought from earlier. Yeah.
Well, I'll advance this a little bit.
Yeah, because they've gotten Mulder steady, but now it's Scully on her own. She's talking to the local cop, and like I said about
didn't
he had a partner.
Boggs channel her at one point?
Not yet. He's going to.
Okay.
In this next conversation that they have.
God, that was
because
weird.
She's
Channeled
gonna
her
go
younger
talk to
self.
them. Yeah, she's gonna go talk to him now, all riled up because Mulder's hurt and she's on her own and she's already fragile because her dad just died, and she storms in and is like, "You are a fraud. You were just trying to get back at Mulder for putting you on death row.
She says,
if he dies, I'm gonna throw the switch on you myself.
Yeah, gas you out of this life for good, you son of a bitch." And she starts to leave. She's like going, nah, 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 and he's doing his thing.
She's trying to say, "I don't believe you." And he's like, "Maybe you'll believe yourself." And this is where he channels her as a kid, remembering the time she got out of bed in the middle of the night and snuck a cigarette. And it was gross, but it was so exciting to be doing something that she knew she wasn't supposed to.
There was That one time when I was 14, and my parents had gone to bed, and I snuck downstairs all alone, got one of my mom's cigarettes and went out onto the porch in the dark. I was so scared. My heart was beating. I mean, they would have killed me if they knew. But I was so excited. Not because of the cigarette, I mean, it was gross, but because I wasn't supposed to.
It could be a moment from any kid's life.
I gotta say, though, I don't know what Scully was like when she was a kid, but this does not seem like Scully to me.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, it's hard to imagine her being
like the voice,
shy
the
and
hair
retiring.
tugging that he's doing. Like, none of it strikes me as what she would have been like as a 10, 12, whatever this is supposed to be,
14. Like, your
14.
personality's somewhat
Yeah, this
congealed at that
definitely
point.
doesn't feel like a 14-year-old Dana Scully to me personally, but according to Scully's reaction, it is accurate. But this is...
So she must have hardened up at some point after this, right?
Well, we do get the indication that, like, probably part of her parents wanted her to be a doctor, so probably part of why she went to medical school and stuff in the first place was to people please. And at some point she decided to stop doing that, so...
Yeah.
But then we get the backstory about how he got his psychic powers, because as she was talking to him about it, he's...
Let's see. I know what you want, and I know who you want to talk to. Why don't you just go ahead and ask me? And then he says Starbuck. And he seems
like as her dad.
Really creepy.
Like, getting your dad's voice coming out of a serial killer would probably be pretty creepy, even if it was actually your dad's voice and not the serial killer faking, but we still don't know. But then he gets mad and he's like, nope, nobody talks, no messages, no nothing until I get my deal.
Oh, God. Now, at one point he says there's plenty of room in that cold, dark place for liars, Scully. I guess that was about the newspaper?
No, this is when she says, I don't believe you.
Oh,
and that's when he says
right.
There's plenty of room in that cold, dark place for liars. Because he's saying that, like, this is when he's talking about that he doesn't want to go back there. This is what he's talking about right now. Because, like, he died and all the spirits rushed into his body. And
he's like, fuck you, spirits. I'm going to hold you at bay until I get my deal.
Well, and that, he saw a glimpse of the other side when he was there. And that, when he was getting ready for death row, that's what I was saying. He's like, we get the origin story of his powers, that he was talking to a priest, and the priest was saying that,
that's right. There's a flashback. So he's on death row. So they must have given him a pardon
they
or
talked
something.
About that earlier. He got a stay of execution from the governor last minute, but he was already in the chair. Mulder talked about that when he was first there, because that's how he claims he got psychic powers. So now we're seeing his side of it, where as he's trying to eat his last meal, his whole family that he murdered after their last meal is, like, watching him. And when he's walked down the hallway to the execution chamber, it's like all of his victims, all of the people he's ever hurt are just...
I noticed the first two victims look like twins.
Twins, yeah.
Oh, so weird.
And he's feeling all of the fear and anguish that he caused him, and he's like, that alone is enough of a taste of hell. But then when I was strapped in the chair and I thought they'd already killed me, and I felt all of these, like, spirits rushing into my body, and I was seeing it from, like, the outside, and that's when he was talking about the cold, dark place, and...
It is a cold, dark place, Scully. Mulder's looking in on it right now.
It may be a cold, dark place for you, but it's not for Mulder, and it's not for my father.
She's like, it might be a cold, dark place for you, but it's not for him, and it's not for my father. And then he says...
I'm sure he'd like to tell you himself, but I'm not going to let him. Nobody speaks until you get me a deal. Oh, he's so hardcore.
Yeah. So, and then that's when he says the bit about, she's like, I don't believe you. And he's like, there's plenty of room in that cold, dark place for liars, Scully.
Yeah, it's funny. It's almost like he's trying to play on her morality. Like, he's a mass murderer. He doesn't care. But he's, like, trying to convince her that he's reformed.
Well, I don't think it's that he's reformed. It's that he's trying to say, like, because we don't know. We never get a concrete answer. Did this really... I mean, the ending does kind of leave it to suggest that, yes, this happened to him. Was his experience with all the spirits and stuff. But if that's the case, then he, as a mass murderer, probably did not believe in stuff like... I mean, he talks about, like, he'd never talked to a priest before, like, his execution and stuff. So he probably did not believe in stuff like God and hell and punishment and redemption. And then he got a glimpse of, like, an afterlife that he didn't like. So he... I mean, it's not just trying to play on her morality. If he believes it and is trying to say, like, this is the reality and it happens to line up with, you know, something that would put pressure on her belief system. But he is trying to manipulate her and get her to do what he wants to do. But if he really did experience that, then part of this is coming from him now really believing that that stuff exists in a way that he wouldn't have before.
Yeah. I did write here that cops lie. And this one was kind of cute. They just made a fake newspaper. But one of the things about being a cop is that to do their job, they pretty much have to lie, or at least that's how it is.
I was gonna say, like, I don't believe that's true. That is what has been ruled, that there are circumstances that they are allowed to lie in.
Whereas if she's a good Catholic, she should know that bearing false witness is a sin. And this good Catholic girl, Scully, just crossed that one off the list, you know, like...
Yeah, I will say, though, as somebody who grew up not Catholic, but Catholic adjacent, there is also a lot of... Catholicism is all about, all you have to do is sincerely repent and ask forgiveness, and your sins are forgiven. So, having observed Catholics, there is a certain amount of, like, all I have to do is admit to this and ask for forgiveness and say some Hail Marys and I'm good.
Yeah, I could see that. But also, repent suggests trying never to do it again.
I mean, the whole loophole thing, right, is that they're saying, like, I've seen Catholics who act like it's a get out of jail free card, right? Like, if you get to a priest on time before you die and you say it. But technically, for it to actually work, you have to be truly contrite. Like, you have to truly regret what you did. So if people are using it as like a get out of jail free card, I go to confession once a week and I'm all good, then they probably don't genuinely feel regret and contrition, and so it probably isn't working. Like, they probably aren't all good, but theoretically, you know.
I wanted to back up the shot a little bit so we could check out this fucking amazing model of the prison. Mm-hmm. It's like not even a full second. And somebody built that thing? Or did they find it in a garage sale? Like, it's amazing.
It could have been a real shot of a prison.
Maybe. Check this out.
I mean, it's just an exterior shot with no footage in it, or no, like, people in it. Could it be, like, a
maybe
stock footage?
It's either a prison that looks like a model or a model that looks like a prison.
But Scully is talking to a judge, trying to get him to make a deal, and he's like, we're not making a deal with a death row murderer, especially one who is continuing to perpetrate felonies from inside, because at this point, everyone's really convinced that he's working with a partner. So she goes back to tell Mulder, who's conscious now, you know, and not looking great, but seems to be stable and, like, out of danger, you know. Still looks like somebody who was shot recently, but, and this is where he's talking about, you know, this was revenge for me putting him on death row. If he can't kill me, you're the next best thing. Like, don't believe him. If you buy into it and believe him, you're putting yourself in danger.
Yeah, his last line is, go ahead.
Oh, no.
His last line is, don't deal with him. He could be trying to claim you as his last victim.
Mm-hmm. So then we go back to, once again, the prison interrogation room, and Boggs is being brought in, And Scully is there, and she lies her pants off, because
Scully.
she tries to do a Clarice Starling here, and it works about as well as it did for Clarice, when she's like, okay, you got your deal. Deal made. And
I just rewatched Silence of the Lambs. Yes, it is the same deal. She's like, you got a plot on this island where they used to do animal infection.
No, they used to do nuclear testing.
Oh,
nuclear testing is what they used to do there. But, yeah, so he gets all teary-eyed and he says, thank you, ma'am. And then he goes into, like, channeling trance again to see where they are. And he does one of his, you know,
I see, like, circles. I don't know, like barrels.
He's like, no, big vats. It's a brewery.
Yeah, the old Blue Devil Brewery up by Morrisville.
And then he once again gives a warning like he did with Mulder, which is, don't follow him to the devil, Scully. That's my job.
Don't follow Henry to the devil. Leave that to me.
So what is he talking about? Like, was that Boggs saying leave that to me, or was that one of the spirits?
We don't know. Because the voice is a little different than his normal speaking voice, but it's not like clearly a whole different character, but we don't know who he's channeling when he's getting information from them, because nobody there is dead. So it's just that the spirits can see stuff from wherever, like, we don't know. But anyways,
here's my
this
theory.
is where...
One of Henry's victims channeled Boggs and set up this thing, and he lured Henry out onto the
I mean, that could be the
wood.
people he killed at the same time last year, you know, the last college students.
We're never inside Henry's head or anything.
We're never inside, yeah, so we don't know. But, you know, could be trying to save the next people. But then, as Scully is packing up, like, to go do the raid, she's like, well, that proves it. You aren't psychic, because if you were, you would have known. And he cuts her off and goes, that you lied.
Yeah.
And he says, but I know that you tried.
Mm.
So he's basically giving it to her that, like, I know you genuinely tried to get me a deal and they wouldn't do it, so I'm going to give you this and tell you where to find them. And then we cut to the killer who's, as Boggs had implied, psyching himself up to do the killing. He's hopping around with an axe.
Now,
trying to...
we're to the bad guy, right? We're almost completely through the episode, so we haven't seen much of this guy.
We've only seen fragments in his visions.
This dude is real sweaty. He's off his nut. He
also doesn't look as short or as skinny as Boggs described. I mean, he is a smaller guy, but, like, he's described him as, like, real thin, and I don't think this guy is real thin. Like, he's, you know, that would imply, like, somebody who's real skin and bones to me, and this guy looks like, you know.
Yeah, he's a corn-fed Hollywood actor, or Canadian actor, probably.
Yes, most of this was shot in Vancouver.
He is going for it. He slams his axe into a table, and then Scully runs in with all her goons.
And he's just
agents.
over the victim with an axe raised when she shouts at him. She's like, freeze, federal agent, and he starts to lower the axe, and then he raises it again, shoots him right in the shoulder. And then he runs off. And then she runs after him. Some of the agents peel off to attend to the guy who's been tortured for a week, so he's probably not doing great, but is alive. And then he's obviously been shot, so he's kind of stumbling around and he's running, and they're chasing after him. And then we see him run out.
I love that she always has one of her guys go up in front of her.
First, because he hits one of the other agents with a bucket first as he's coming around the corner. And then he keeps running, and then she runs after him, and then he runs out onto this little walkway, balcony thing, and it is in front of the Blue Devil, the logo, and the board cracks under his foot.
No.
And he looks up for a second, and he falls to his death.
I think he falls through a second bridge.
He falls through like a set, yeah, because they're a couple stories up. So he falls quite a ways down. He hits stuff on the way down. He's definitely immobile we assume dead, on the floor.
Amazing.
And Scully's all freaked because she did not follow him to the devil, and she was saved, unlike Mulder, who did not listen to Boggs' warning and is in the hospital.
The devil's face fades away, replaced with Boggs, who's sitting on his cot.
And Scully is talking to him again and basically says, I believe you now. And he's like, why? And she's like, because if you were partnering with him, then he would have been aware of the danger you warned me about.
I believe that if you had orchestrated this kidnapping, Lucas Henry would have been aware of the danger you warned me about. He never would have crossed that bridge.
Yeah, I believe that if you had orchestrated this kidnapping, Lucas Henry would have been aware of the danger you warned me about. But he didn't. The channeled spirit did, right?
Well, but if all of this was fake, then anything he knew, like, you're saying, like, this is the whole, is he for real or is he not? Because if he's for real, then everything is coming through spirits. If he's not, then he knows everything that he's saying as a pre-planned.
Honestly, I don't think she got a chance to follow him to the devil. He stopped right in front of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the
Went
thing.
down.
She was trailing behind him, and she did stop when he was on the balcony. Like, she
That's
could have
true.
kept running towards him.
That's
So,
true.
but there was that she probably paused because of it. But yeah, it wasn't really like a whole decision moment, really. Like, it happened pretty quick, and she was far enough back that it wasn't. But anyway, so they have a conversation about, like, I believe you and stuff, and then he's like, but I know what you're here for. It's unfinished business, but I'm not going to let you talk to your dad until I'm back in the gas chamber. I want, like, a friendly face there. I want my witness. So you go to the execution and you sit in that room, and then I'll give you your dad's message, but not until then.
Yeah. Let's see. I had something in my notes here. They go to the death penalty walk thing, and I was thinking about how much the death penalty sucks, and then I was reminded of The Player, where Bruce Willis is like being sent to the chair, like he's playing a character or whatever. And then also Dead Man Walking, like has some of the same imagery. What else kind of death walk movies are there?
I mean, like The Green Mile.
The Green Mile. What's the one where he comes? Oh, Shocker. He comes back from the electric chair. Yeah, so they're strapping him up. He's looking
He's
real
seeing
worried.
all the victims again, just like the last time.
Man, he looks haunted. They open the shield, and she's not there.
She's not there.
Oh, my God.
And he looks very distressed. I don't know what exactly I mean, just maybe a friendly face, I guess, but sure. But they pour the chemicals in, create the gas, and...
Just watching a man die here. How do you feel about the death penalty?
I mean, I am against the death penalty. I think that you cannot, just on the face of it, it's insane to say you weren't allowed to murder somebody, so in response, we're going to murder you. I get that there is a practical side of, like, there are some people who, you know, if you were literally a Boggs, if you have killed dozens of people, if you slaughtered your whole family after Thanksgiving, there is a question of what to do with you. But we do have prisons, and, like, I don't think that's a perfect solution either.
Yeah, in my view, there's just a line. Like, if you're in custody and can't hurt anyone anymore, that's it. The state shouldn't be in charge of
Right. I
putting
mean, it
people
is
to death.
strictly vengeance-based, right? Because we don't do it for other crimes. We only do it for certain ones that you're allowed to attach the death penalty to. it has to be considered some kind of extreme, cruel, and unusual to qualify. So we're doing it for, like, emotional catharsis, which I don't think is a good thing to be doing. I don't think the state should ever be empowered to kill anybody.
I think in the course of a war, like, resources are limited, person was doing genocide, you have a quick trial, I don't know, maybe. But, like, after the war, there's no chance the guy will ever get out and do more genocide, right?
Well, I mean,
so why...
you can never say that there's zero chance. I mean, as
Well,
long as
yeah.
that person exists, the chance exists. But it is incredibly small. But, like, even the fact that stuff like people orchestrating crimes from the inside and stuff does happen, right? So, like, there's no 100% fail-safe way other than killing him. But that's not... Like, our justice system is way too flawed, and we know that way too many people arrive at that point. I mean, we just have, this will timestamp when we recorded this, but in the last couple of days, 2 men have been executed who were almost definitely not guilty of the crimes they were convicted for. In one case, the major witness recanted, and the whole jury signed a petition saying that, like, we repeal this verdict. We never would have found him guilty if this witness had not testified. And then just yesterday, somebody else was killed on junk science. The prosecutor who originally tried him was requesting that his conviction be overturned. Like, the Innocence Project was working with him. There was almost no doubt that he did not do the thing that he was being sent to death row for, and he still was sent there. And of course, both of these people were black men, because our justice system is wildly racist. And as long as we know that that level of failure exists in our justice system, we cannot justify executing anybody, because we do not have a good enough vetting that those people are actually guilty.
Absolutely.
Or a good enough appeals system to deal with when there's genuine evidence that they are not.
Yeah, Marcellus Williams was the one, I think, that the prosecutor wanted it to
even
be
requested.
vacated.
Yeah.
It's dark. Innocence Project does a lot of great work on this.
Yes, who
There's
was
plenty
trying
of
to help
books.
both of those individuals, unfortunately in this case unsuccessfully, but they've done really incredible work.
Yeah. So, listener, if you haven't yet, get educated. And there's only so much one person can do, but do what you can.
Yeah. If it comes up on ballots in your state or whatever, I would say vote against it. Do it. You know, I do not believe that we should be executing people. I don't believe we have the moral authority to be doing that, and I don't believe that we have a foolproof enough justice system to justify doing that.
Amen. And then we have the button on the episode. Mulder's alive.
She went to go to see him instead of going to see Boggs be executed.
Beyond the Sea was playing at my parents' wedding. Visions of deceased loved ones are a common psychological phenomena. If you knew that my father had... Dana, after all you've seen...
I mean, she is rationalized. She's gone back to convincing herself of everything of, like, he could have found everything that he knew about me.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Just somebody writing him letters or whatever, filling him in.
Well, and now Mulder, who's been spending the whole episode telling her to believe in anything but this guy, is now, like, mad at her for going back to her skeptical ways, even though he's been telling her the whole episode to not be, to maintain her skepticism in this one case.
Yeah, I'm afraid to believe. And that's the way for so many of us. Some things are just too hard to leave up to chance or fate or an invisible man in the sky.
Yeah. But then Mulder's like, but now your fear is keeping you from knowing what your father wanted to tell you. And she's like, I know. He was my father.
Oh my God.
And that's it. That's Beyond the Sea.
That's a hell of an episode. So, overall feelings about that episode?
I think it's a really interesting episode, both in and of itself and in the scope of the show. Like, because it is the first time we see Scully in the position of believer, fighting against everybody who disbelieves her in the role that Mulder usually occupies. And also, I think it's an emotional growth moment between the two of them. I think,
yes.
When he, like, uses her first name and tries to comfort her and stuff, and they've clearly connected quickly and cared about each other right away. We talked about even in the pilot where they have that bonding scene in the hotel room when the power's out and she was worried she had that. But I think this episode, I think, takes their relationship to, like, a more intimate, trusting, companionate level.
Yeah.
Because she's been vulnerable, around him in a way that she isn't usually. So, and they've kind of switched roles. And then I think it also is her character development of, like, this was a big step for her, even if she kind of takes it back at the end of the episode, to still to see something that she couldn't fully explain. And to open herself up to the idea that, like, maybe there is some stuff out there that she doesn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love family stuff in these kind of episodes. I like the emotion. And being raised Christian, like, I respond to sort of the spirits and demons and all that stuff. I really like The Omen. And Brad Dourif, man, just nailed that. Absolutely nailed it. All right, moving on. Humbug, Season 2, Episode 20. We are around a pool in Florida. I don't know if we know it's Florida yet, but it's, it's the woods. There's a
pool at night. There's kids playing in it. We get the definite monster of the week framing of, like, watching the kids from the bushes.
Yeah, weird reddish
creeping
face.
up on them.
There's a funky hand. Kids playing in the pool. Green eyes. Are there green eyes? Yeah, there's green eyes. There he is. And there's something in the water. And it turns out to be the kid's dad.
Yeah, he jumps in and startles them and then is like, all right, your mom says you gotta get ready for bed.
Get ready for bed. And this is Gerald Glazebrook, a.k.a., we learn later, the alligator-skinned man.
And so when he, seems like a good dad with a warm relationship with his kids, and he sends his kids inside, and then he's chilling in the pool, and then we see something else in the water. And it, like, we get the killer cam shot of it going straight into his torso, and him flailing around in the water, and then him, bleeding out in the water, and we see the sign on his trailer that says
Gerald Glazebrook, the alligator man. Now, I gotta say, I think his makeup looked really good. What did you think?
Yeah.
Gator Man.
So, it's our first introduction to the world of this episode and the fact that, like, expectations based on, first impressions are going to be deceiving in this episode because they immediately put him in the position of monster, even though he's just, like, an escape artist and a loving dad.
Yeah.
That it's not going to be as easy as visual cues of who the monster is in this episode.
Now, when I was rewatching it earlier this week, I was like, early on, I'm like, this isn't as, like, out and out comedic as I remember. But I think they started creepy, and it, like, they sort of, the jokes kind of are constantly coming back.
Yeah, it's very wry, right? Like, it's not like a big slapsticky, although, I mean, in some ways it's quite broad, but, like, it's a very wry, sarcastic sort of humor. And I think because the real themes of this episode are about the ways in which humans other people, right? Because this whole story is centered around circus freaks, which have a very intense history in this country of, like, people who have been so othered by physical differences that they basically had no other option, but actually historically, a lot of them really enjoyed working in the circus because they found a family of people who had been othered in the same way that they did, people who thought of them as human beings and instead of weird oddities, even if they were making a living by being gawked at as weird oddities, that it was a place where they could be themselves in a society that rejected them. But this episode is all about the ways that we other people, because, not just, and sort of the way that fairy tales and Disney have taught us to judge people by physical appearances and stuff like that. We'll get to it in an episode, but there's, like, a part where they are suspicious of the sheriff just because they find out that he was a circus performer. He was Jim the dog-faced boy in his youth.
That's
and
right. And he, like, shaved all the fur off.
Yeah. So he's, they're suspecting him just because they find out that he used to be a circus performer as well. And they're, they bring it up as they're following him and, like, digging up something that he buried. And so they're like, yeah, I guess it's like judging somebody based solely on their skin color, right? And they're like, yeah, but then they keep digging it up. And then later when he catches them, they're trying to justify it. Scully goes on a whole thing to try and justify, like, we always look into law enforcement because often criminals are drawn to law enforcement or whatever. And Mulder's just like, we found out we used to be a dog-faced boy. But there's lots of moments like that in this episode where they're contrasting the way that we are judging physical appearances of the freaks is so baseless and so stigmatizing. And I mean, it's the fact that, like, every James Bond villain in history has had some kind of facial deformity, right?
Right. Yeah, we've talked about this before.
The way that we visually link deformities or injuries or physical differences to villainy. And this whole episode is, I think, a great counterbalance to the fact that, like, these are just regular people. He was just a dad as well as being an alligator-skinned man.
Yeah.
Right now we're seeing his funeral, and it's full of a bearded lady who's his wife, and, the
pastor uses his
pastor
feet to
uses
turn
his feet
pages.
because he doesn't have arms. And then we see also the self-made weirdos, right? Because we're about to, in a second, meet the human blockhead, Dr. Blockhead.
Oh my god. Who just ruins the funeral.
Ruins the funeral. This guy, man, this is a guy we can judge because this guy is an ass. He bursts into the funeral of somebody he doesn't know for attention.
Scoundrel behavior. We see the subway ghost from Ghost. That's Vincent Schiavelli. Let's see.
And his parasitic twin brother, who's wearing his own little suit.
Yes.
Funeral.
And we don't know if his brother's alive or dead at this point, I don't think.
Well, I mean, like, most parasitic twins are, like, appendages, so they've got, like, blood flow and stuff through them.
Yeah.
Okay, spoiler alert for this episode, because you basically kind of like, the twin is not only, like, alive, but independent to a
that's
degree.
right. He can, like, pull himself out, and the way he kills is he sticks something into their side.
No, he bites them. So he's attached to his
Okay.
brother. There's like but he's trying to, the whole thing of this episode, they don't know what the killer is. It's mysterious. It's climbing through small windows even when there's doors open or whatever. And we find out by the end that it's his parasitic twin, Lenny's parasitic twin, who is looking for another brother, but doesn't understand that their weird biological mutation that allows him to not only be a parasitic twin, but to attach and detach through, like, a orifice, that gives him access to his brother's body and life support systems, I would assume. And he's going around attacking other people trying to find a new brother without fully understanding that if somebody isn't born with that specific genetic mutation, he can't just hook up to random strangers in the same way he can hook up to his brother.
So he's trying to find connection and be a part of something more than...
and also leave his brother, which is very sad because his brother feels very rejected by this. But he's not, a fully, as far as we know, like, conscious formed human who understands the fact that he's killing people when he's trying to find a new brother. At least that's what Lenny thinks.
Yeah. I feel like we're supposed to think it's Dr. Blockhead just because he's such a dick. Like, he claims to be from Yemen. Like, he
claims a bunch of stuff
funeral.
that's seriously part of his prattle. But I mean, I also think that the conundrum, aka the Enigma, which I think is funny that the guy's actual name is the Enigma, and in this episode they call him the Conundrum instead of the...
Is that the guy with the jigsaw puzzle?
The puzzle
on him?
pieces, yeah. Because he is a real performer who goes by the Enigma. They call him the Conundrum in this to give him some distance. But yeah, this whole episode is about the way we other people and judging people based on appearances, because we get, I think one of the big scenes of this episode is that really drives that point home is when Lenny comes to get Scully out of her trailer because there's been another murder, and her eyes linger where his robe has fallen open to see his parasitic twin, and his eyes linger where her robe has fallen open to reveal some of her boobs. And so just this moment of them both realizing that they're objectifying the other person in different ways, and then both like realizing and covering up. Like, I think that shot is kind of the thesis for the whole episode.
Hell yeah.
But it's also a great, funny episode that deals a lot with, I mean, because Mulder's original theory is that it's the Fiji mermaid. They talk about, you know, P.T. Barnum and the fact that he billed the Fiji mermaid as a genuine fake because it looked so bad. It was a monkey taxidermied to a fish body. But then it got so much attention and popularity as a fake that maybe he was just smart enough to bill it as a genuine fake instead of the real thing because he could get more interest in it as a fake. So Mulder thinks it's the Fiji mermaid. But it's not, it's Lenny, it's his parasitic twin.
Yeah, at one point somebody says something about bed bugs, and then Mulder's like, don't let the Fiji mermaid bite.
Yeah. So Lenny works for Mr. Nutt, who is another incredible actor who we've seen in a lot of really great and also sort of similarly toned shows, because he's been obviously in Twin Peaks, but he's also in Carnival.
Carnival.
Yeah. The early prestige HBO show about a 1930s carnival and a battle for good and evil.
That sounds pretty good. Is it bad?
It's pretty good.
Oh,
no,
good.
It's very good. They just never got to finish it, so it ends where there is clearly an overarching story that they were driving towards, and then they got canceled before they could finish it. So it's one of those things. It's excellent. I highly recommend it, but it is deeply frustrating because you never get the resolution of what was a clearly planned story arc. There are a couple seasons of really good TV, though, so I highly recommend it if you're interested, but know going in that you will be thwarted in a conclusion.
Yeah.
You will never get the resolution that they were clearly building towards.
That sucks. I hate that.
I hate it too. So
well, we'll add it to the list just for fun.
Sure.
Let's see. There's a moment, I'm going to call it like bad police work moment of the show. There's blood on a window, and Mulder fucking touches it with his bare hand.
Yeah, he does. He's the only one who noticed, though, that there was blood on the outside of the window, and that he's like, maybe we should get this tested, because there's blood splatters everywhere on the inside. And it was like, why do we need to test the victim's own blood? And he's like, well, this is on the outside, so maybe this was the point of entry, and then, but he does touch it with his bare hands. He, like, smudges it. And it's like, that doesn't seem appropriate.
No, it reminded me of Commander Data touching everything.
Well, this is one of the things I think Mulder and Scully get in bad habits. Because like we talked about in the pilot, there's very rarely anybody that they can, like, press charges against in this show. They often stop whatever was happening, but very rarely do they have somebody that they can, like, charge in a court of law. So I do think it has made their evidence collection and stuff a little sloppy.
Well, so many times these shows, the only way to stop the bad guy is by shooting him. Like, that it's quite often a thing in cop shows. Probably because ordinary law enforcement judicial system is kind of dull, and they want to wrap things up at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
There's a guy with a melty half face that really gave me Garrick vibes from Deep Space Nine, but it turns out he was a Canadian actor, but he was in 5 different X-Files episodes.
Oh, wow. So he's one of those guys like in Buffy where they just keep using the same person, putting different prosthetics on them. Sometimes not even that.
Yeah, like Jeffrey Combs in Star Trek.
Yeah. No, he's in Scully wanders into a museum of freaks history. Yeah. And, you know, there's a little box at the beginning that's like, freaks free, everybody else, like, please leave a donation. She's looking around, and he kind of comes up behind her and starts talking about Chang and Aang, who are a very famous pair of performing conjoined twins. These are real people. They're actually where we get the term Siamese twins from, because they were some of the first really, like, celebrity conjoined twins, and they were from Siam. So the reason that we call, like, twins or conjoined twins, Siamese twins, is because of these very famous performers who were conjoined twins. But yeah, there's a great little bit in this where he talks about, after talking to her about freaks versus gaffs versus geeks, the different kinds of circus performers and stuff, where he's like, I've got a very special exhibit only for the very discerning, you know, I don't show this to everybody, but, you know, if I were to show it to you, you'd have to promise me 2 things. And she's like, okay, what's that? And he's like, first of all, tell no one of what you witnessed within this room. And she's like, in the second? And he's like, an additional donation of $5. So she coughs up $5 and he shows her into a back room, closes the door. It's all dark and mysterious. There's one spotlight on a big chest. And he said that this was an original Barnum attraction that he'd managed to get his hands on. A true Barnum attraction that he called the Great Unknown. And so she goes in, she opens the chest in this dark room with the spotlight, and there's nothing in there. And then the door opens, and the exit sign pops on, being like, "You're done. That's it. It's the Great Unknown. It's an empty
prank.
chest."
Oh man,
it's a prank.
You got spoofed.
It's a good prank though.
It's like a reverse jump scare. It's like you think you'll have one, but there's none.
But no, it's just emptiness. You paid $5 to see an empty chest, which is a very P.T. Barnum thing to do.
Totally.
But yeah. We get several encounters with Mr. Nutt, who's the manager, who we talked about. Is a really great actor, going on diatribes about people judging him for his height. And it's like, I get it. I definitely do, because people make a lot of presumptions, and you get used to just, but you're also living in a circus freak town, so you might get less of those comments if you ran a motel literally anywhere else.
Yes.
Just because I'm not of so-called average height does not mean I must receive my thrills vicariously. Not all women are attracted to overly tall, lanky men such as yourself. You'd be surprised how many women find my size intriguingly alluring.
And you'd be surprised how many men do as well.
Yes, but we also do here get a very 90s homophobic joke, which is Mulder going, and he says, you'd be surprised how many women are, find my size intriguingly alluring. And Mulder goes, you'd be surprised how many men do, too. And clearly trying to make him uncomfortable and succeeding in making him uncomfortable, and he runs away.
Yeah, gay panic. That was pretty common in the 90s.
Pretty common in the 90s. I will say, Mulder uses it a couple of times throughout the series in a way that I find interesting, because in some ways, for the 90s at least, it's very progressive that Mulder is not afraid to be seen as gay, but very homophobic in the fact that they're using gay panic to, make other people uncomfortable. He knows that people are not going to want to be associated with being gay, even if he is not afraid of personally appearing to them as gay. So,
exactly.
Kind of a weird mixed bag. But, this is a classic monster of the week, and it's kind of like a whodunit. We're examining different suspects before we figure out that it is the twin the parasitic twin who's able to detach. But we do get a very good climax of them chasing the parasitic twin once they know that that's who's been doing the killing through the funhouse.
Oh my god, it is so spooky. It's underground. It's all these corridors. It reminded me of, I'm not sure which book it was, but there's a Dresden Files book where he goes into Mavra's lair, and it's all underground, and he has to be careful because there's innocent people down there, so he doesn't want to blow them up. There's guys with shotguns, and they're evil baddies, and claymore mines. I mean, it's just that was all I was thinking of when I was watching this. This guy could come out of a corner, cut your liver out,
I've always wanted to, since I was a kid and I first saw this episode, I've always wanted to both go to a funhouse like this and, build a funhouse like this. But part of the problem is you couldn't actually, the funhouses you go to at fairs and stuff now are so, because the liability of a funhouse that actually involved, trapdoors and slides and unexpected things would be, unworkable. But I deeply crave an actual maze-like funhouse that surprises you with stuff instead of the ones you can go to at the state fair where, like, you know, the floor wobbles.
Yeah, I'd prefer to go to,
something.
like, a performing arts center or something, you know, like, I don't know. We did one at our local theater.
Though I will say stuff like Meow Wolf gets you pretty close.
Meow Wolf?
Oh, have we not talked to... If you don't know what Meow Wolf is. Meow Wolf is an arts collective that builds incredible exploratory installations. They started out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but now they have ones that they've built in Denver and Las Vegas. They're building one in LA now. But I highly recommend Meow Wolf to anybody. If you're in the area of one of their installations, you can lose hours there by exploring these incredible environments that they've built with a bunch of artists.
That's so cool. Hell yeah. Where is that?
The original one is in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but there's one in Denver, Colorado. There's one in Las Vegas. The one in Las Vegas is called the Omega Mart. The one in Denver is called the Convergence Station. And then there's one in a Texas town that I can't remember the name of, because it's not like Houston or Dallas or Austin. I don't remember. But they're building one in LA right now, which is interesting because they have kind of avoided the really major cities. You know, like obviously Santa Fe and Denver and stuff are big cities, but they've avoided the like New York, Chicago, LA, Seattle kind of level of cities.
That's wild. That's cool.
But they are very cool and close as I get, except for some very some haunted houses of getting to live out the funhouse fantasy of like crawling through things or, you know, finding a secret passage or that kind of stuff.
Shot fired.
There's a moment where she just starts shooting at the creature, and I know it's like killing people, but for some reason it seemed rude to me. But yeah, they think she might have injured it. And doesn't it die from cirrhosis of the liver?
No, Lenny dies from cirrhosis of the liver. Lenny, who's an alcoholic, dies, and so the twin who's been trying to find a new twin has nowhere to go back to. But what we actually get is that the conundrum, who is a geek, which is somebody who eats stuff that you don't normally eat, including live animals for his act, the implication is that he ate the twin.
Probably something I ate.
Either before, I mean, like, when it was still alive from Scully shooting at it, or after it had expired. Either way. But
God.
no, they knew that it couldn't survive because it can only spend a certain amount of time detached from Lenny. And this last time when they were chasing it through the haunted house, Lenny passed away of cirrhosis of the liver. So it had no home to go back to, even if... I do think she kind of lays into it like that because, again, this whole episode's themes of, like, objectification, dehumanization, and othering is that even though this is a person to a certain extent, like, this would have been, you know, a conjoined twin situation and one where he'd more fully developed. Usually a parasitic twin doesn't have any kind of independent consciousness or anything, but this one clearly does.
Yeah.
But she's treating it as, like, a animal at best, a thing in general, you know, instead of as a person. Although I do think a person who had at that point killed intentionally or not, you know, like, because we see it kill at least 6 people in this episode, and it has been killing people before that.
48 before the episode even started.
Right. So, like, I think by the time that you've passed 50 murders, people don't really stop to ask a lot of questions if they're pretty sure that you're a person.
Just gonna assume you have your knife on you.
Yeah. So, but I do think that this is a really fun episode. I do think it is a very weird episode, so I understand that this is partially because that's my vibe. But
It's a variation of an American Indian sun dance ritual. I suspend myself by these hooks, and the pain becomes so unbearable I leave my body. If people knew the true price of spirituality, there'd be more atheists.
I think the quote of the episode is, I'm not sure who says it, maybe the sheriff. If people knew the true price of spirituality, there'd be more atheists.
yeah, that's Dr. Blockhead.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about having studied with yogis and
Oh, it was part
stuff
of his
like that.
patter.
Yeah, it was part of his patter as he's driving a nail into his nose. No, it was actually when he was doing his variation on the Native American Sundance ritual, where he put a bunch of hooks in his chest and he hangs from them until he passes out and has visions. And that's when he says, if people knew the true price of spirituality.
Yeah. Culturally appropriative, but also cool as hell.
I mean, he's very culturally appropriative of all kinds of cultures, because he claims he's
Totally.
from a country he's not. He claims to have studied with mystics
Yogis,
of
yeah.
various different, Fakurs and yogis and, holy people of various different religions, and, all to get the power to drive a nail into his own nose.
Okay, so overall, good episode, funny, worth your time. I feel like this one could be a good on-board episode for somebody that wasn't a huge fan but might like a good episode now and again.
I think this is, one of those that you can step into without having seen anything previously. It is a very specific tone, though. So, I can see that turning somebody off, because this is not the tone of the whole of the series. This is a part of the tone of the whole of the series, but this is not the major vibe. But I do think it's a good one to watch if it sounds at all fun or interesting to you, because you don't need to know mythology stuff to get this episode.
Hell yeah. So,
But it's just sort of a delightful character piece. It's filled with great character performances.
Oh, yeah. You got Conundrum. You got Mr. Blockhead. Yeah. So many good wacky characters. Larry/Lonnie. Was Lonnie the little guy? The killer?
Lonnie was the guy
Oh, he was
who he was attached to. But, Mr. Nutt, the hotel manager.
Yeah. Oh, man.
He got a lot of really great performances.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, that's the X-Files. I think we should come back to this at some point. Do another X-Files episode here and there.
Sure. I can talk about the X-Files endlessly. So, yeah, anytime anybody wants to come in and talk about X-Files, I'm fine with that.
Hell yeah. All right. Tell your friends and family. Get those X-Files freaks up in here.
Rewatching these episodes to talk about, I've started a whole X-Files rewatch, so...
Hell yes. That's the way to do it. That's why we're here. Now, we're not doing 1-star Goodreads reviews on this one, because it's a TV show.
I'm sure we could find 1-star reviews for it, but...
Who needs it?
Who needs it?
You're already in deep, X-Files fan of the future. Let's see. Coming up next, we're doing The Wizard of Oz. We should have a guest, so that'll be in a couple of weeks.
We've talked about in previous episodes of the show. So
yes, Ben Mooney of Any Album You Like.
Yep,
and yeah,
incredible niche podcast ideas are unparalleled by anybody else that I've.
Hell yes.
But yeah, so we're going to be talking about The Wizard of Oz, the movie. Reserving the right to talk about the Oz books.
I might pick one up at the library this week and give that a little
in another episode, but we're going to talk about the movie next week. So if you want to get a little Judy Garland in your life until we're back to talk about one of the biggest landmark pieces of cinema in history.
I'm so excited. It is my number one favorite movie, so I'll have a lot to say.
Yep. Sounds good.
Do you want to... That one will probably be jam-packed. I'm wondering, do you want to roll this week or then to find out what we're doing next?
Let's roll.
This time we did it a week before, but we can hold off if you like.
No, we can roll this week and
Okay.
see what's coming up next.
Let me pull up the Google Drive. Selection overall list. Okay. So we did fantasy, we did science fiction, weird fiction. So we're back around to either fantasy or weird fiction. There aren't as many weird fictions, but they're all bangers. What do you think?
Yeah, let's do weird fiction. We should throw some more on the list in the future, though.
Absolutely. And listener, if you can think of any, definitely.
Yes, any suggestions you have for interesting media, we are.
Let's mix in the horrors. We'll kind of.
Yes, yeah.
I added 3: Camp Damascus, Hannibal, and Silence of the Lambs, because we've talked about those on the show.
Bangers, yeah.
Does Carnival count as either horror or weird?
I mean, it's kind of both, so.
Well, let's add that then. This is our first time ever rolling for one that might be on the episode. So that's 11. So let me go to my random number generator. What do we got? Severance on Apple Plus.
Oh, nice. That's such a good show. And
Yes.
I really tried to get a lot of people to watch it, but while it is excellent, it is also, if you're currently feeling depressed about work culture, kind of a hard watch.
Are you currently feeling depressed about work culture?
I mean, no, but like my sister is one of the things that I know she would like the show, but she's also been feeling a little depressed about work culture, so has not been in the headspace to watch it because it's satirizing in the most devastating way, but you know, it's great.
So what do you
I'm
think?
excited to talk about it.
Should we save it till your sister is in a better place, or should we just go for it?
No.
now?
I have no idea when that's going to be. So if we're going to have Whitney on, we should have her on something else sooner that
Hell
she's
yeah.
already seen or read or listened to.
Let's do the first episode?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, without that context, all the other episodes would be hard to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
It's only got 9 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the kind of thing you could either buy it or do a month of Apple TV Plus if you don't have it.
A trial and yeah.
There are so many great shows. If you finish that early, you want to get
Dickenson.
For All Mankind.
So good. I mean, Dickenson is about Emily Dickinson's adolescence.
Okay, one of my favorite poets. I'm putting that on the list.
And with very funny send-ups of 1800s literary figures.
That sounds great.
Like Hemingway, the Hemingway jokes are... Or, no, sorry, not Hemingway. Henry David Thoreau jokes are incredible.
That's fun.
And based in reality, like, some jokes of some stuff about Henry David Thoreau that I don't think enough people knew about. Anyways, there's a lot of good shows on Apple if you want to get a month of it. Like you're talking about For All Mankind, Silo, which is on our list.
Is probably my favorite, maybe just because I immediately watched it as soon as I finished it, which is a good sign. But also, it's only 1 season. I think they're making a second, but it's very contained as a storyline.
All right, cool. I'm excited to see that one yet. I haven't seen that, but I've heard good things about it from you as well as other people. So, all right. Cool. So yeah, Wizard of Oz and then Severance. Jeff, do you have any recommendations of anything you've been into since?
Yeah, we didn't do recommendations last time. I was editing and I was like, how is this possible? We mentioned the dozens of stuff. Let me check. Why don't you? Do you have anything on deck?
Yeah. So I started listening to a podcast called The 16th Minute, which is by Jamie Loftus, who I am a huge fan of Jamie Loftus. They've done some really incredible podcasts in the past, like Meyer and Mensa and the Lolita podcast, and they just wrote a book about hot dogs, which I haven't read yet, but I've heard only good things about. But their new podcast, the 16th Minute, is about people who were the character of the day on the internet and what that was like for that person, as well as like what happened to them afterwards. So it's about
16th Minute.
Yeah.
Warhol.
You have 15 minutes of fame. What happens in the 16th minute? So it's both going back to look at some internet phenomenon, like she has an episode about the dress, the blue and gold dress, or like others, to kind of look at some of the cultural repercussions of different internet phenomenons of people who were the character of the day. But she also quite often interviews them if they're, at all available and interested in speaking about it. So it's really just started listening to that, but binged like 5 episodes at work today. So,
ooh, that's awesome. That's a good sign. I finished The Maid and the Crocodile by Jordan Ifueko, and it's the 3rd episode in a sort of like first she did a duology called Ray Bear and Redemptor, and this is like set in that universe a year later. It's very cool, very quick and readable. It's contained. You don't need to have read the other 2. It's quick description. How do I put it? There's a young guy, might be a god, and there's a girl who's broke as hell, and she's got this crazy new job that's very unpleasant, and he kind of takes pity on her, and they sort of, they figure each other out sort of along the way. It's a love story adjacent, kind of. Like, that's not the main thrust of the whole thing. And it's kind of from a fairy tale environment that's kind of based on African culture and myth and stuff. It's wonderful. Instead of black magic, they call it the pale arts.
Nice.
A lot of little flip switcheroo type stuff there. Yeah, it's wonderful. The Maid and the Crocodile. That's probably most of what's going on with me.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
All right. Then we will see you all back here for Wizard of Oz.
Hell yeah. How exciting. Oh, shit. Well, thank you, Lindsey. Let's tell them our goodbye, which is, great and secret knowledge at gmail.com. That's the email. We're on Facebook, and we might be on another social media at some point. Yeah. But those are the ways you can reach us.
If you have any thoughts about anything we've talked about or anything we're going to talk about, definitely let us know.
Yeah. And 5-star reviews, please. If you,
it's nice if you don't mind. If you're enjoying it and you have time, then we appreciate it.
Hell yeah. All right. Thank you, Lindsey. Till we meet again. Enjoy James Lark's theme song. You can find him and all his work linked at jameslark.co.uk, and check out the art of our awesome art creator, Amy Ashton. Ashton Art is her deal, so look that up. And the truth is out there.
I want to believe.
A huge thanks to James Lark of jameslark.co.uk for providing our wonderful theme song. Thank you, James. We should probably start the show.
We should start the show. Welcome. To our second X-Files episode of The Great and Secret Knowledge.
Yes, you start.
I suspend myself by these hooks, and the pain becomes so unbearable I leave my body.